Started? Yeah. Hi, welcome to Coursera's virtual workshop. This is the second session of Optimize Your Assessment Design. This is the follow-up of the earlier session, which was about learning outcomes. Just some logistics before we start. We would love the session to be interactive. So we would love to see if everything is working for you and if you're able to hear us. If you're watching, please see if you're able to access the Q&A feature of Google Hangouts. And please test by either posting something, posting a test message, or even doing a self-introduction. And I'll give 2 minutes for everyone to get set up. If you're wondering where the Q&A section is, it's usually in the topmost right corner of your screen. There is an arrow bar. If you click into it, you will see a Q&A text box, and when you click into that, you will see that on your sidebar there will be a Q&A window that gets popped up. Just so you know, this is also getting recorded, and you will have a link to this Hangout after we are done. And you're welcome to share this link with your colleagues. All right. Hopefully more people will come and see this workshop later on. Today we'll be doing a quick run-through of assessment design. I will start off by providing a brief overview of how to build an assessment plan, why they're important, and provide an overview of the assessment types we have on the Coursera platform, in particular focusing on quizzes and peer reviews, and finally talk about the recommendations for building an assessment plan. If there is time, and we're also happy to take questions. Let's move into the screen share now. All right, let's talk assessments. So in the next 15 or 20 minutes, I'm going to talk about why assessments are important, the types of assessments we have on Coursera, and go through several examples of how successful instructors and course teams in the past have built assessment plans on our platform. So why are assessments important? Yesterday in the session, you learned about learning outcomes. For a brief overview, a learning outcome is a description of what change is expected in a learner at the end of the course. These can be changes in new skills, in attitudes, or knowledge. And that is what you want the learner to achieve as a result of taking your course. Now remember, not everybody has those skills. That's why they're coming to your course. So they have a starting point. And the course needs to take them from that starting point successfully to the destination, at which point they should have acquired new skills, knowledge, or attitudes. In other words, have achieved the intended learning outcome. One thing we need to do as they're going through the journey is have several checkpoints in which they can demonstrate their mastery of new concepts. We call these on our platform summative assessments or graded assessments. The role of these summative assessments is to demonstrate new skills. And we recommend that you include these summative assessments at every checkpoint that represents a distinct new skill. However, we all know that learning is not a linear journey. Learners don't always know if they're on the right track, and we need to be better at figuring out gaps in knowledge and giving them the opportunity for feedback and correcting those gaps in knowledge. This is where formative or practice assessments comes to play. Formative assessments are practice opportunities. They are low-stakes opportunities where learners get to practice if they have mastered new material correctly. Ideally, they check for gaps in learning, And when those gaps are found, they provide enough feedback to the learner so that they can go back and improve on their learning. To provide the low-stakes environment on Coursera, we refer to these assessments as ungraded assessments. A good assessment plan includes both a number of summative assessments as well as several formative assessments that give them adequate opportunities to practice new skills as well as demonstrate their mastery of these new skills. Together, the combination of strong summative assessments, strong formative assessments, and feedback are part of your assessment plan. Let's now go over the types of assessments we offer on Coursera. Coursera offers four types of assessments. These are quizzes, peer review, programming assignment, and LTI. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to spend some time going over quizzes and peer review in quite a bit of detail. Programming assignments are assignments that you use in data science courses or technology courses where learners learn to program. These are auto-graded assignments. LTI, in other words, known as Learning Tools Interoperability, is an option provided by Coursera where you're able to plug in other external tools into our platform. Programming assignments and LTI are specialized assessment items. If you would like to explore the use of these items, please talk to your producer. We will now be focusing largely on quizzes and peer reviews because these are the more general forms of assessments found on our platform. All of these assignment types can be either practice or graded. In other words, they can be either formative or summative. Let's get into quizzes. Quizzes are great for building knowledge, for building reflection, and building engagement. In the next few slides, we will go through several examples of how they have been used successfully. Quizzes are typically auto-graded, and we have a number of options, including multiple choice, checkbox, and reflective type questions. Examples of all of these can be found in Coursera 101. We will now go over several examples of how quizzes are well done on our platform. Let's go over a couple of examples of how quizzes can be used to build knowledge. This is an example from an English course which asks learners to identify which sentence is a compound sentence. There are two options. Learners must choose one of them. But note that there is also feedback. When a learner chooses a correct answer, there is a feedback that is given to them, reinforcing why that answer was correct. When a learner chooses the wrong answer, again, there is feedback, explaining why that choice was wrong. The importance of feedback is very critical so that learners know whether they're learning correctly or not. This form of feedback, explaining both correct and incorrect responses, is also called explanatory feedback. Another type of feedback is corrective feedback. Here's an example which is from a business course, which asks learners to identify what is not an example of business metrics. There are four options. One of them is the correct option. The other three are wrong options. When a learner chooses the wrong option, they are provided feedback that asks them to refer back to the video lecture that covers those concepts. Here, the explanation doesn't give away the right answer. Rather, it refers the learner to the right place where they can fix their gap in knowledge. This is another example of how feedback is provided. This is from a tech course, Responsive Web Development, and it asks the learner, what does HTML stand for? When a wrong answer is selected, there's a hint. It says looking for a 3-word answer. And it also asks them to go to the See How It Works lecture or chapter 7. So not only does it provide some scaffolding for how the learner must get to the right answer, but also tells them where they can refer. Quizzes are great because they're auto-graded, but the most important thing that we recommend in quizzes is the inclusion of feedback, so that learners are able to adaptively learn and use that feedback to correct knowledge gaps in their knowledge. This is extremely critical in a MOOC environment, largely because, remember, you as the instructor are not going to be available all the time. In a college campus, there may be mentors, there may be teaching assistants, you may hold office hours. These opportunities are not usually available in a massive online open course such as those provided by Coursera, and learners rely a lot on this feedback to know whether they're doing correctly or not, and to know what they need to do when they make an error or when they find that there's an error in their knowledge. Let's now look at examples where quizzes are being used to build engagement. Coursera provides what is known as in-video questions, where you can include a question in the middle of a video. An excellent form of engagement is one that's the poll type question. In a poll type question, you can ask learners what they believe and ask them to agree or disagree, as the example shown above, shown in the slide. And when a learner answers the question, they can see all the answers that have been provided by other respondents. This is a way of providing asynchronous interactivity on the platform and can really increase a boost in engagement because learners can now feel that they're not learning alone, rather they're learning in a large worldwide classroom. Another example is reflection. Reflective questions are questions that are not graded based on the answer, but simply graded based on input. All one needs to do in order to pass a reflective question is provide some kind of input, and they're automatically given full credit for that question. Here are ways you can use reflective questions. This is one example from a business strategy class about Porter's strategic thinking. It asks the learner to jot down some ideas or problems they see with Porter's way of thinking. When learners provide an input, you can also provide feedback. Here it says, in the next video, we'll hear about some of the criticisms that others have leveled against Porter's perspective. This is a way of getting the platform or you as an instructor to talk to a learner. Although a learner can input anything into the text box, the feedback gives them a sense of presence and lets them feed forward and continue to stay in the course. In short, quizzes are great to build knowledge, for building engagement, as well as building reflection. Let's now move on to another kind of assignment called peer review. What is a peer review assignment? In a peer review assignment, learners review and grade each other's work. It facilitates grading of open-ended assignments, such as essays, art, and design projects. The peer review is the only mode available on our platform to grade open-ended questions. The way it works is by allowing learners not only to submit, but also review each other based on a set of criteria that you as an instructor will provide to these learners. These can be open, they can be ungraded, such as a practice opportunity where learners can understand each other's experience and perspective. They can also be phased. In other words, they can be graded and required for passing. In a phased peer review, learners will first need to submit their assignment, then review other learners' assignment. Only then will they be provided their own score. Peer reviews work by requiring every learner not only to submit, but also review a required number of learners that you will choose as an optimum number for each assignment. Here's an example of one peer review assignment. It's an assignment titled Get to Know Your Classmates. This is an optional project, and it asks learners to submit a 1 to 4 minute introductory video. Note that it clearly indicates to the learner what needs to be included in the video. They need to include their first name, why they choose to take their course, what they hope to learn, what you plan on learning when they finish a course. An important thing to get in peer review assignments is that the assignments need to be very clear so that learners know exactly what to do, especially when the scope of the project is open-ended. Here's another example from an operational business course. Here, learners are asked to provide a business analysis and are also told that they need to review 3 of their peers' answers to the same question. They're clearly told that the question is worth 6 points, and there's also detail on what the learner needs to do in order to earn the full 6 points. They're told that they should develop a business analysis, a P&L analysis, a balance sheet analysis, diagnosis, action plans, and conclusive statements. Again, it needs to be very clear to the learner what they must do, and what they need to complete in order to earn credit. Let's now look at the peer review process from a learner's point of view. The peer review will first start with an assignment. Here's an example of a course, and imagine that you as a learner are looking at an assignment. You will first see a set of instructions. The instructions include clear steps about what you need to do and what you need to include in your assignment. Here there are instructions about selecting a photograph, what needs to be changed in the photograph, and also how they need to submit a photograph, such as a RAW file or a JPEG file. All of these instructions are extremely important so that learners understand what is expected of them in the assignment. Once they read the assignment, the learners will move on to a submission step. In the submission, learners must respond to several questions by way of which they submit their assignment. As you can see, the learners are asked to submit a photograph, they're asked to submit 2 photographs, as well as provide some open text response of why they provided the photo, as well as why they choose certain ways to take the photograph. In Coursera's parlance, these questions are known as prompts. Creating these prompts or questions are very critical because it provides the learners the exact steps they need to do in order to complete the assignment. Let us assume that you as a learner has read the instructions and has now submitted the assignment. The next thing you will see is the review stage. In the review stage, you will be asked as a learner to review submissions of other learners. You will be shown the assignment of other learners and then asked to grade it based on a set of rubrics. The rubric that is shown in this example is about, was a photograph of a scene submitted, and it also asks if the photograph was made with the right kind of shutter speed. And then they're asked to provide points, which you as an instructor would create. In this case, the instructor has created 2 yes/no questions for grading the learner's submission. Once a learner has reviewed the required number of learners using these criteria provided, they then move to the review stage. To recap, in Coursera's parlance, these are called rubric prompts and rubrics options. The rubric prompt is the question that a reviewer is asked in order to assess in a submission, and the rubric options are the criteria that they are the grid or the assignment assessment scale that they use to grade the learner's submission. So now, as a learner has now read the instructions, they have submitted an assignment, and let us assume that they have now reviewed several assignments. Once they have done that, they finally get to see their grade. They finally see their grade, where you can see how other reviewers have reviewed the learner. Here's an example where there is a question that says, was a statement submitted by the learner? And all 3 reviewers have said yes, and they've awarded them 15 points. There's then an open text where the reviewers are asked to provide some feedback. And the 3 reviewers have said something, have tried to provide helpful feedback. Our learners find that this feedback section is extremely rewarding when done well. And this is something we encourage you to concentrate on, helping provide potential reviewers guidance about how best to give feedback such that learner submissions can improve. To summarize, a peer review includes assignment instructions, a submission process, a review stage, and finally a stage where a learner gets to view their grades and feedback. A lot of these components are extremely critical, and a peer review, when done well, can be an extremely exciting and rewarding experience for the learner. On the other hand, a peer review that does not set expectations clearly or does not provide enough opportunity to feedback can lead to a very disappointing experience for a learner. So let's look at some examples of how some peer reviews on the platform have been done really well and think through why they succeed so well. Here is an example of a peer review where an instructor chose, in addition to the instruction, to include a sample assignment. They've uploaded a sample assignment and clearly stated that how the actual submission needs to look like. It says, this is a sample of how your completed assignment might look. The sample is for SAS coding. Through the Python assignment will look similar. Why is a sample assignment important? because learners get to not only read the text of what they're expected to do, but actually visualize what the end outcome can be. This helps greatly to set expectations. Although some peer reviews may be extremely objective and give away the right answer, in many cases peer reviews are open-ended where learners can interpret them any way they want. The sample assignment can help anchor their expectations. You can also provide learners an opportunity to practice a peer review. This can be either the actual final peer review, or it can be some portion of the final peer review that is really critical as a skill that the learners need to hone. In this example, the learner is asked to submit a practice assignment before they submit the final assignment. It provides a learner a low-stakes opportunity to get feedback. We talked a little earlier about the importance of clear rubrics. Here's an example of a rubric that is extremely clear. It provides a grading scale between 1 to 4, but also provides extremely clear, crystal clear guidance about what constitutes a grading number of 4, what constitutes a score of 3, what is a score of 2, which is about needs improvement, and what is a score of 1, which is unacceptable. In general, having a range of scores is very important because it provides a lot more variety and lets a learner really understand where in the spectrum that they fall. But it's also important to provide enough guidelines of what is a 3, what is a 2, what is a 1. In a lot of the cases, we've seen rubrics where the rubric might say that the assignment has accomplished the goal, the assignment has somewhat accomplished the goal, and the assignment has not accomplished the goal. In these cases, learners often don't understand what does somewhat mean, what does no mean, what does completely accomplished the goal means. Providing clear guidelines about what each of those indicators mean, such as what does completion mean, what does somewhat completed mean, what does no completion mean, is really important so that learners can be assessed correctly and that learners can assess other submissions correctly. Some ways in which you can clarify these rubrics even further is by creating a sample quiz. Here's an example where prior to a peer review, an instructor chose to upload a sample quiz, but also had learners grade the quiz as though they were using the grading rubric. This gives learners the ability to practice a peer review. This is not helpful for oftentimes we're asked if this is helpful for them just to improve their reviewing skills. But this is actually also important for them as a learner because by using that quiz, by completing the quiz, they also learn more about what is expected of them when they go on to the peer review. Finally, we spoke a little earlier about the importance of feedback. Feedback is something, when well done, can be extremely rewarding or enriching. But learners do need guidance about the importance of feedback. So here's an example of something of a paragraph that an instructor chose to include in order to let learners know more about how to give feedback. It says the first thing to remember is that the person whose work you may be scoring and commenting on is a real human being with real hopes and aspirations just like you. There are positive things to be said of every submission. Here, the instructor is trying to prime the reviewers to say something nice and complimentary about the assignment, but also provide constructive feedback. There are other things you could do with feedback. You can ask learners to state what they would like to get feedback on. For example, one instructor chose to have learners ask others for feedback. And they've also given an example of the kinds of things they can ask for feedback on. This allows learners to get targeted and customized feedback that is relevant to them and relevant to their gap in knowledge. Finally, you can also choose to include feedback prompts. The feedback prompts are starter statements that learners can copy and paste and expand upon. These can help reviewers a lot because they often don't know where to start in terms of feedback. And these prompts provide a good starting place that they can choose to include and expand upon, making the feedback much more rich and customized to the learner. So some of the best practices for creating peer reviews are the addition of example submissions, including ungraded peer reviews as a practice opportunity, explaining the importance of feedback so that learners are motivated to give feedback, as well as the inclusion of feedback prompts so that learners know what kind of feedback to give. So we talked about why assessments are important, what kinds of assignments we have on Coursera, which are quizzes, peer reviews, programming assignments, and LTI, and also the importance of building an assessment plan, especially by going through examples of quizzes and peer reviews. We've now concluded the presentation, and I would like to open it up to questions and answers. One question we are often asked is that learners complain about the large variation in the grades they receive from their peers. How does one reduce the variation in peer review results? That's a great question, and in fact we can borrow from some of the examples we have shown. One way to reduce the variation of results is extremely clear rubrics. Be extremely clear about what the grading scale means. If you choose a 3-point or a 4-point grading scale, be clear about what each of those points mean. Instead of saying 1 is poor, 2 is great, 2 is good, 3 is great, explain what does great mean. Say that a good assignment includes the following elements. A great assignment includes the following elements. And this allows learners to understand how to differentiate between good and great assignments. Another way to do it is by including a sample assignment so that everybody understands the expectations and has a unified understanding of what they're supposed to do as part of the peer assignment. There's also a sample quiz where you can train the reviewer on how to provide or how to grade. The active learning experience of doing the quiz or doing a quiz through which you learn how to grade is often a very good experience so that learners crystallize or stabilize a common format on which to grade other learners. Another question we've been asked is, can we limit the number of attempts for each summative assignment? Our default is that we allow learners to retake quizzes 3 times every 8 hours. You can choose to adjust these variables if you choose to. Please talk to your producer about it. In the case of peer reviews and programming assignments, they're often able to submit without any penalty. Another question we're often asked is, what are the best practices in terms of engaging students in the course? This takes me a little off topic from assignments, but I will discuss some other ways of engaging students in the course. One way to do this is through the inclusion of discussion prompts. Discussion prompts are prompts where you can include a topic for discussion in the middle of your course, perhaps between 2 assignments or 2 videos. Learners will see the discussion prompt between 2 items, and when they choose to submit a response, they will see the responses of other learners. Discussion prompts are lightweight ways to increase engagement. These are not graded; they're ungraded opportunities. But these are also ways you can use to get learners to give some feedback. So, for instance, if you're conducting a business course where the peer review assignment is about asking them to select a topic for the final project, you can use the discussion prompt to have them get some feedback on the selection of projects. So you can say, for instance, you can frame the discussion prompt to say, please discuss your project topic with your peers. In this case, some learners might choose to submit their response saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing my project on this. What do you think? And other learners might respond saying, I too am thinking about this kind of topic, or I was thinking about something else, but you gave me a different idea. And these are ways in which you can promote lightweight engagement that are relevant to the topic at hand, but also make sure that learners are feeling supported. If you do have the time, we do encourage you to host hangouts or create videos responding to the forums from time to time. This is not mandatory and it is not required of you all the time, but these are lightweight ways that you can make sure that your presence is being felt, say, once or twice every session. So we don't see a lot of additional questions yet, and we're going to pause for about 20 seconds to give you a chance to say anything else you'd like to know before we close today. While we wait for that, just a reminder that the slides for the presentation, as well as the recording, will be available for you to refer to later. In our emails to all respondents, we also sent a lot of pre-work about Coursera 101. We think that this pre-work is very important, and we encourage you to do that, and especially encourage you to go through the resources on Coursera 101 in great detail, as we think that this is a great chance for you to get a sense of how to build great courses on the platform. Just to remind you, you can ask questions in the sidebar, and we'll hang around a little while longer to see if anybody has any questions. All right, thank you. I hope you will see this video later, and we hope you build a great course with Coursera and looking forward to how you amaze learners across the world. Thank you.